History channel, where we bring you history in a friendly, neighborly manner 24/7, 365 or 366 days a year. If it's a leap year, I want to welcome you to our special 2-hour Q&A, Ask Me Anything. We do a Q&A, Ask Me Anything every Friday and Saturday on YouTube, usually at 6 p.m. Eastern, but because I wanted to give it 2 hours and because I can't do it later on, I decided to go earlier. So we're here at 3 p.m. Eastern on the East Coast, bringing you some friendly neighborly history for the next 2 hours or so. So it's a special because we are celebrating, and we are celebrating the fact that the YouTube gods have deigned to monetize us. We have just reached the second level of monetization. So yes, we are officially a YouTube partner. We have memberships available here on YouTube. We also have donations here, super chats, all of that great stuff, as well as, of course, ad revenues and all of those great things. So we're celebrating that because this is the first weekend that we got that, and we always have live streams every weekend, Fridays and Saturdays at 6 Eastern. And then, of course, we do our live stream lecture on Sunday, so you can go into the channel and vote on what topic you would like me to discuss this Sunday for my live stream lecture. I'm really looking forward to it. 4 p.m. Eastern there. So welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History channel, where we bring you history in a neighborly, amicable manner, 24/7, 365 or 366 days a year. And so really looking forward to what we have for in store today. So any questions you have, any topics you'd like to discuss regarding history and social studies, please be sure to bring them up with me. The crowns, those are new. Those are top fans. So those are like the people who are participating most in the chat. You can get a crown and become a top fan. If you want your comment to be seen, you can do a super chat, and maybe I'll be able to see it a lot sooner and answer your question. We get a lot of people in the chat. We get a lot of questions in the chat from a lot of really, really good people who are really interested in learning as much as they can about history of all types and varieties. We discuss European history, which is my expertise. I have a master's in European history, but I also have a bachelor's in history as well. So I'm a historian. So I've studied U.S. history. We talk about Latin American history. We talk about the history of the Middle East a lot. We talk about Asian history and African history. So we talk about all kinds of history here at the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. Yes, I did do my evening prayer to Woodrow Wilson, who has become quite the meme of the channel of late. But yes, so we talk about all sorts of different topics here at the Friendly Neighborhood History channel, because I believe every type of history is important. Every kind of history is interesting. And we've got people who join us from all over the world. We've got Harry, my wonderful moderator, who's in the chat, who is from Great Britain. So there's that going on. Yes, thank you, AC. And you need to study manners. So yes, very nice, hilarious. Wow, I occasionally have chapped lips. You're jealous because you don't have lips like this. So anyways, let me see. Misinformation. There we go. And reported. Okay. So there we go. If you have a question about history or social studies, please drop it in the chat and I will be happy to answer it. We're going to go for 2 hours today because, again, we are celebrating. We just got monetized here on YouTube. We're really, really excited about all of that. We're really, really happy about it. And so, yeah, 2 hours of friendly neighborhood history. So we're really looking forward to it. Everything's going well here. Thank you, Big Chungus. I appreciate it. And we welcome the meme Big Chungus into the chat. Are there ancient savants in the historical record to the caliber of people like Mozart, Newton, Einstein, etc.? You mean a history savant like me? There are definitely, Herodotus had this amazing ability to remember things that people told them and then to write that down, and that was the way of doing history. Some of the earliest histories ever recorded were oral histories by people like Herodotus and things like that. In fact, despite the fact that we believe history, the actual science, begins around 4000 BCE, because people at that time started to live in cities and write down records of what went on their daily lives, the earliest historians really weren't writing historical accounts for the sake of history until the middle of the 1st century BC, with some people recording accounts of current events, cultural phenomenons, religious activities before then, but actual concentration of history as a science really starts with men like Herodotus and Thucydides in the first half, near the second half of the 1st millennium BCE. So some interesting stuff there. Do you think, yes, oral history is really common. I'm glad you came across a history channel on Live. I'm so glad that you're here. Do you think that the Commonwealth of Nations should mean more than some lows mess? I don't know what you mean. The funeral industry is growing with a choice of cremation up to 63% a year. Well, cremation's a lot cheaper than actually getting buried. In the States, because I'm an American, it's tens of thousands of dollars to buy a plot and then get buried, which it makes no sense to me, but it's maybe $1,000 to get cremated. But I haven't checked. I don't plan on checking anytime soon. yeah, they wrote stuff down about what was going on in their daily lives, but it was actually people like Herodotus and Thucydides who went to the effort of actually trying to figure out what the heck was going on in the world around them and collect accounts from different people or write down what had happened. And that is what happens and that is how ancient histories really get started. So, loose mess. Yeah, I guess so, Harry. Who really discovered the modal system in the circle of the fifth? We have always had the chromatic system, but who really put it together? What are you referring to? I'm not an expert in any of what you've just mentioned. The families pay about 800 and 900 per cremation in my crematorium. Oh, wow. Ryan is one of our friendly neighborhood historians, and you can be too if you like and subscribe. And if you have any topics or questions you'd like to ask, drop them in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them in a friendly, neighborly manner. We're going 2 hours today, people, because we are celebrating monetization. YouTube has deigned to give us that second tier of monetization, so we will be looking at ad revenue and other things, and I will be looking at new and all the money that goes into the channel, whether through donations or through memberships or through ad revenue, is going to be put back into the channel, into getting new equipment, better backgrounds, all sorts of fascinating stuff to make history more appealing and more interesting, more friendly and more neighborly from the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. That's what our focus is on. Our goal for the year was to get monetized. We got there just basically halfway through the year, and now we are moving forward to our next stage, and that is building this channel, making it more professional, because I want this to be a full-time gig for me. That's what I've decided. A lot of people have always asked, oh, is this something that you're going to do once in a while, or is this something you're going to do in addition to your day job? Don't quit your day job. I've heard all of that stuff before. I realize that the delivery of history is my passion because I am a historian, and that's what matters to me. And if I could use this to be the mode to do that, that actually is more effective than writing academic papers for the rest of my life. Although I would love to get a PhD at some point, and maybe if we get monetized and get enough funds, I can afford to do that. But anyways, enough said. No pressure to donate, no pressure to any of that. Just like and subscribe, and that's how you become a friendly neighborhood historian. And we have Simon the Bunny is in the house. That's incredible. Great to see you, Simon. Long time no see. Simon is one of my wonderful moderators, along with Harry and Solomon and Rodolfo and Hars, and they always do such a great job of holding down the chat, talking about fascinating topics and interesting things. Simon, are you joining us today? Because we're not going live at like 1 a.m. British time. What's your opinion on the Bronze Age collapse? I generally tend to think, Big Chungus, that the Indo-Aryan migrations, the rise of the Hittite Empire, the integration of the chariot into the armories of many of the empires of that area, is generally responsible for the Bronze Age collapse. I think when you see a collapse of a civilization, be it the Harappans in India or any of the kingdoms in Egypt, foreign invasions typically are a huge responsibility in the ancient world for the collapse of these and the rise of new entities that use new powers and things like that. So it's fascinating, Big Chungus, that it was standardized in different areas. You have collapses of different kingdoms and regions in different parts of the ancient world going on around the same time. I think the Shang dynasty was still going in China, though. I'm pretty sure. So before writing the historical record, was oral tradition and memorization a huge part of human life? It was, but a lot of people were just trying to survive. Ancient and paleontology and paleontology, I never can pronounce that right. Studying the ancient human behaviors and experiences, we see that humans were very obsessed with survival, which makes a lot of sense because they lived in a world that was very unsteady. Itinerant migration never really had the need for memorization, but as people became more settled after the Green Revolution during the Neolithic age about 10,000 years ago, people started to settle down, and the more they settled, the more the traditions and legends became more baked into their consciousness. I mean, there were no forms of entertainment. People needed something to hold on to create something that bound them together as a people group in a certain area. And as this people group grew and grew, and there were more farms, and there was this need to build a civilization to protect these farms, to sell the goods from the farms, and to manage the farms, which obviously led to servants, to farmers, to workers, to fighters, as the need to create tools to properly reap the harvest and yields of the farms, human beings became more interested in building a culture around a series of different communal farms, and this became the beginnings of culture. And obviously there needed to be something that bound these people together, so stories, legends, and religions all emerged from this, including the most ancient of mythologies. Great question from Gaiahan. Great questions from Big Chungus. The modal system is referring to music. I'm surprised you are not educated there. I'm not a big music buff. I love music. I love listening to music. I can't sing to save my life. I play a couple of instruments, but not very well. But yeah, AC. The chromatic system, I believe, that's scales and things like that, if I'm correct, if I'm remembering my music well. Where do I need to subscribe so I can read your thesis again? That'll be on my Substack. And now that we got Simon the Bunny here, maybe he can put the social media in the chat. Rodolfo, great to see you. So we've got all my moderators here. That's really awesome. And it is Simon the Bunny. You're under subscriber of me, my friend. I'm not a professional historian, but I'm absolutely fascinated and in love of history. Well, I'm so glad that you're joining us here. I really am great to see you, Big Chungus. Music theory, history matters too. Absolutely, AC. So there's plenty of history I don't know about, and the more I learn history, the more I realize there's history I don't know about. So AC, I appreciate you being here and being able to maybe enlighten me on some of those things because I'm not an expert in all of it. I mean, you could get $1 quadrillion of debt to get your PhD. That's about what it costs in America. It is extremely expensive, although they do sometimes subsidize it. Why did France surrender to Germany in 6 weeks? In which war? They didn't surrender to Germany in 6 weeks in the Second World War, World War III, 6 weeks after they crossed the Maginot Line, because the Germans outsmarted them and destroyed them. Yes, indeed, ducks and rabbits. Do you know about why Donald Trump do what about World War II? Donald Trump wasn't even alive during that time. And I believe it's World War III. And we've missed you, Simon. It's great to have you here. And yes, subscribe and all of that great stuff. I really appreciate Simon and how he holds up the chat and all of that stuff. And Harry does a great job too. Harry, can you put the Instagram in the chat? Simon, the social media handles, if you will. You can follow me on X, Instagram. I have a TikTok now, Friendly Neighborhood History. And of course, I do a lot of my content from there, makes it on here, but not all of it. So if you want more content from the Friendly Neighborhood History channel, go and follow us on TikTok. Yeah, I'm still completely in the unknown about Indian history outside of Greek records. That's the next thing I want to research. So you would love my video. I do long-form videos every Monday and Friday that come out at 8 p.m. Eastern, Chungus. But one of them is, thank you, Simon, by the way. But the one I did most recently, I think it was last Friday. So not most recently, but the third most recent video was about the caste system, the Varna system in India. Indian civilization pops up about 3,000 years before Christ in the Indian subcontinent along the Indus River, the second largest river in India, in the subcontinent, with the largest obviously being the Ganges. This civilization, called the Indus River Civilization, or better known as the Harappan Civilization because of their major city-state of Harappa. Funny how human beings in Mesopotamia and Greece all decided to have city-states before they had united civilizations ran by kings and emperors. But they pop up there, they have different cultures and traditions, they have a social class that's emerging, they farm, they build cities, they trade with each other and with the Mesopotamians and even the Egyptians, and they are eventually kind of die out and disappear. Climate change, flooding really hurts them bad, as does the migration of the Indo-Aryans from Central Asia and South Asia around 1800 BC. And by 1500 BC, these Indo-Aryans had established a control of the system, and they started to codify all of the cultural and religious ideology of the Harappans into a systemic manner that became the Varna system, which is the caste system, the Hindu religion, which existed before then. They wrote down the Vedas, which are the ancient Hindu writings that Brahma supposedly gave his followers, which are the priests. So there's a little bit there about the development of Indian civilization, Chungus. Sort of a meta question, but what is your opinion about the world of academia? Do you like postgraduate school or institutions? What's the difference between a published paper and a Substack article? I think a lot of people, there's a level of academic study and knowledge called peer review, where people are actually at a point where they have knowledge about where they write an article and they have other people who are extremely well educated and versed on that particular topic review it, give their commentary, make suggestions. Those suggestions are accepted, and the paper is changed. So peer review means you actually have academics looking over the paper before it is published and put out into the public. When I write Substack articles, which I do about once or twice a week on different cultural and historical topics, I don't go to anyone for a review other than myself. I make sure I fact check my information, but it's not reviewed by anyone outside in an academic sense. So it's kind of a halfway between just a regular blog and something that's more academic. So an academic paper is peer reviewed, meaning other sources in academia have looked at it. Academia is a monolith of people who have obviously devoted their lives to a particular topic. The danger of that, it's an incredible and passionate and wonderful thing, and I have benefited from it and have seen it benefit a lot of people. The problem that it can sometimes create is an ivory tower model where people don't necessarily see they have such an incredible knowledge about one particular topic. They think that they have tunnel vision, and they think that knowledge on that topic applies to all other topics. So they become experts in all other fields whatsoever. And just because an academic is, and we have a tendency at people who are not as educated to look back and say, oh, they have a PhD, they're in this field, so they're right about everything. People love to set up authority figures and then use them as a source every single time. That's not always reliable, because somebody could be talking about a topic they know nothing about and yet be completely wrong, but because they're educated, they're considered to be an expert. Noam Chomsky is one of the greatest linguists in history. That doesn't mean that every single commentary he makes culturally, politically, or socially is accurate. It may be, but it's not because he's an expert in linguistics. So there you go. There's my big take. I'm generally in favor of academia, of academics, of research, of development, of studies, of all of these things, but it does have its limits. It also creates a chasm between the people who are well-educated, and many of them well-meaning, and people who are more casual, the non-academic world, where people in the academic world think they can speak and that will settle everything, and that isn't true. I think the Commonwealth has basically become just a subscription club where we all agree on some loose principles, but we don't really have to do anything. Yes, people love to have the cred of British history on them. Yep, there you go, Big Chungus. Go watch that video. I really appreciate you being here. And Shakar, who is from India, is here. Hello, speaking of Indian history. I think it should really mean something like a European Union of the world, or European Union of the former British Empire. So you want to recreate the European Union. You want to make the European Union great again, but with the British in control. Oh boy. It's fascinating what an ultra-nationalist you are, Harry. Although, ironically, you don't even have to have a British colony or protectorate or anything to join the Commonwealth. You just have to have a sovereign UN-recognized state. That's interesting. I did not know that. And you have to be accepted by other member of the Commonwealth. Hars will tell you, he called you disingenuous. Yeah, well, he doesn't. He's wrong. And yes, we are getting close to 9,000 subscribers, so please like and subscribe. The goal is 9,000 by the end of August. I think we could get to 10,000 if we really, really work hard on it. These live streams are a great way that we communicate with our fans, but also get the word out. Who killed Joe Colombo? I don't necessarily know. Who was Joe Colombo? I don't read books, only listen. Listening to audiobooks is one great way to get information. There's people who learn multimodal. I'm a multimodal learner, so I learn from hearing and seeing and reading. So, yes, Simon, you must teach him. Simon's been here. I think he's one of the oldest moderators, in the sense that he's been here on the channel for so long, and he has been an incredible resource. Everybody loves Simon, and everybody misses you, Simon. We're so glad to see you, and I'm so sorry I haven't replied to your email. I really need to. Yeah, I have Audible. I listen to Audible when I'm at the gym, which is like 2 times a year, so that's fun. Road trips are good for Audible, but whenever I'm driving, just doing errands, I'm listening to podcasts, bringing my knowledge up on the day so I can do my news articles and my news presentations, which every day I now report the news, because who better to report the news to you than somebody who studies things that happened thousands of years ago. Let me see. I cannot sit there and read a book. It would drive me nuts. I can listen. I like listening to books. I like listening to books, but I also like reading them. I was reading a book in a loud, crazy bar last night, but just totally enamored with the book and what I was reading. Oh, interesting. Yes, the Colombo mob boss. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know, Logan. I'm not an expert in mafia history. I can tell you how the mafia got started and probably culturally why it got started, but not necessarily the ins and outs of every single mob boss. Although I do like Goodfellas, but who doesn't like Goodfellas? So, anyways, if you have a question about history or social studies, or a topic you'd like me to discuss, please drop it in the chat. I'd be happy to answer. We are 20 minutes through, 1/3 of our first hour, but we're going 2 hours today because we are celebrating the fact that we just got monetized. We hit the 2nd level here on YouTube, and if you want to help us go to even higher rates, like and subscribe. Remember, all the money that we earn here goes towards building our brand and building everything. So that's what we are working on here on YouTube. We've been doing the live streams for about a year. We started in June, I think, of 2024. The channel started in February of 2024, President's Day weekend. So President's Day weekend is our birthday. And then June of 2024, we had our first Q&A. We used to do them on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, which is when we usually do them now on Saturdays. Eventually, people wanted to keep asking questions, so we started doing it Saturdays and Sundays. And then eventually we decided to do Fridays and Saturdays to start your weekend off the right way and keep it going the right way. And then on Sundays we do our live stream lecture, which are topics that I never got to in the Q&A, which I would have used for dead air, but we rarely have dead air, so that's really good. And then on Sundays is the live stream lecture where I talk about a particular historical topic that's interesting. Do Italian mobs use acids like cartels do? Sometimes, yeah. Watching from Zimbabwe. Thank you for joining us, Zoe from Zimbabwe. Have you heard of Predictive History? He has a channel that just, oh, Joe, great to see you, that just blew up. He's a Chinese professor that has geopolitical videos and is pretty much guessed all the Middle East conflicts happening now. That's fascinating. No, I have not. Predictive History has got to be really cool. Oh, Sengiz, you're Dutch. That's fascinating. Your first language is Dutch. That's fascinating. Dutch is not that dissimilar from English in some ways because they're Germanic languages. English is a Germanic language with a lot of French and Latin influences and some Celtic roots as well. I predict the U.S. election. I predicted some things that have turned out in history. I'm not a huge expert in in predicting what's going to happen next. If somebody wants me to predict what's going to happen next, I guess I could try. Eddie, about 8,600 people, which isn't a lot, but I'm happy with it. I never thought I would get anywhere. When I made my first video, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I thought maybe 2 people would watch it because they were going to be nice to me. And then the next morning I wake up and 400 people had watched it. And I know now, but that's not a lot for a short, but I was just fascinated by how many people were actually interested in learning about history. And if just one person comes onto the channel and says, hey, I didn't know this before, I know it now, and I'm really impressed, and I think you're doing a good job, and I really love learning about history, so thank you for sharing. I'm very, very happy. Why don't you just leave? I'm not going to kick you out of here. How do you remember everything and recall everything in time? Sometimes I forget things, but it's funny because in real life I'm actually forgetful. I'm the guy who's like, oh, I lost my keys again. Oh, I lost my credit card again. Oh, I lost this again. I lose stuff all the time. But when it comes to history, it's a fascinating thing to me. Okay, Harry, I didn't want him hidden. I was trying to convert him to our side. Sorry, Eddie. Hopefully you change your mind. So basically, Logan, I think about what I'm learning. I try to when I make connections to other things I know, I actually can talk it out. Sometimes I talk it out, and then it sticks to me. Because for me, history is all about connections and ideas. You deserve 15K by now. We will work on it. My life is very hectic and the time difference doesn't help. I do love your channel. You're so kind, Simon. I'm just glad that you're here right now. Anytime we get with you is amazing. So, yes, thank you, Harry, for doing that. I appreciate that. But yeah, we'll get there. And I'm not it's not a race, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We're not racing against anyone. We have no deadlines to meet. I give deadlines from time to time, and usually we meet them. Sometimes we don't. I mean, we got to 8,600 subscribers. We're close to 9,000. My hope is 9,000 by the end of August. We'll see if we get there. If we could get to 10,000 by the end of the year, I would be super duper impressed. And nobody says that anymore. But we got monetized halfway through the year with another half to still go to actually build up the channel even more. And any money that we get from the channel goes into making the channel better, into improving our quality of everything that we do, be it microphones, be it backgrounds, be it all of that stuff. Are you thinking about other things when you put your credit card or keys down? Yes, Steve. Typically, I'm thinking about history. Or I'm thinking about how I'm going to respond to one of your fact checks on my videos. And I come up with pretty good responses, I think. But thank you for challenging me. Anyways, questions about history, social studies, and the like. Be happy to answer them. You guys can go and vote, by the way, on my poll I put on the channel for what topic I'm going to discuss in tomorrow's live stream at 4 p.m. Eastern. Really looking forward to that topic, whatever it is. So we'll see. Yeah. Why entire Europe has one time zone? Europe is actually quite smaller than most of the other continents. Not all. I don't know if all of Europe has one time zone. I know Eastern Europe is different. Um, yeah, that's true. Um, but the so it's not exactly the same. But a lot of Central and Western Europe is indeed about 6 hours ahead of New York time. So, yeah, it's all about longitude, um, typically, but because Europe is smaller, so I think that would be one of the main reasons. Should 18-year-old women be responsible for their sexual actions? I don't know why you want me to talk about this when I just got monetized, and that's a great way to demonetize the video. Uh, yeah, so should men. Why are we talking about women? 15 degrees longitude per 1 hour time zone. There you go. See, the Brits know about this stuff. History back on time, we smart or them? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not sure what you mean. Spain minus the Canaries. That's hilarious. History of Latinos. Well, so Hispanic peoples of different areas, and Latinos refer to, I'm trying to remember exactly. Latinos refer to people who are in Latin America. Hispanics, Chicanos refer almost exclusively to Mexicans. Latinos are a subset of Hispanics, and Chicanos are a subset of Latinos. But Hispanics, Latinos, whatever you want to call them, they're not. That's not interchangeable, by the way. Hispanics are considered to be the mestizo, the mixed race of Spanish conquistadors, conquerors, and settlers, and the native populations and African slaves. These are the mulattoes who were brought to this area, who intermarried with the natives and the Spanish, and the intermarried with the people who were already intermarried, and that created, in many ways, a new race for people to understand, and that's where we get the Hispanic or Latino race. There you go. Do you know any history about Canary Islands? All I know is the Portuguese had them. Or is it the Spanish? I always get confused if it's the Portuguese or the Spanish. Are we smarter than Stone Age? I don't know if people are smarter. We just have more technology and an easier access to information and knowledge. So typically, the ability to educate and to learn more tends to expand our brains, expand our minds, and can make us more intelligent necessarily. But that doesn't mean these people were stupid. What was Spain like prior to Latinization? Spain's interesting because Spain has so many different cultures speaking into it and to it from the past and even in the modern day. You've got, obviously, the Islamic influence on the Spanish population, along with the Arabic language, changed some of the Spanish language compared to French and Latin and Italian. So there's that there. The Muslims controlled Spain in some part, way, shape, or form for over 7 centuries. And I was thinking about it. Somebody on the channel has asked, "Oh, didn't the Muslims bring bathing and soap and all of these things?" And I'm like, that's absurd. The Romans. I actually realized that it's the Romans who created that. So. And brought it to Spain when they controlled Spain. Spain was a Christian area from about the 5th century after it was the Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire. Well, actually, that Western Roman Empire was Christian by that time. Spain was a Christian area for centuries. The Muslims conquered it. Then there was the Reconquista, which was an effort by the people in the northwestern corridors of Spain and the Basque and other areas to slowly but surely push the Muslims out. And this took centuries, different fighters and leaders like El Cid, Ferdinand and Isabella, and the like. And eventually in 1492, the Emirate of Granada, which is a Muslim kingdom, and Emir is a Muslim ruler, were pushed out of the land, and it was taken by the Spanish, and that's called. And the celebration that Ferdinand and Isabella had for this was to charter a voyage to the New World going west to avoid the Muslims, although it was supposed to go to India, and this was, of course, Christopher Columbus. So Columbus is actually a footnote to the Spanish retaking the peninsula, the Iberian Peninsula, or the Spanish area of the Iberian Peninsula from the Muslims, the Emirates. There was the Moors, there was the Umayyads, there was the Amhurids, there were the Umayyads, the Amhurids, the Moors. There's one more I'm forgetting, but there's different Muslim principalities that ruled over Spain in different areas and segments for centuries. The reason Portugal is distinct from Spain in so many ways is the Portuguese actually got rid of the Muslims first in the 13th century and established their own Christian kingdom. So yeah, so the Umayyads brought economic and architectural revival, all sorts of things that the Spanish had not seen, the peninsula had not seen since the Romans had controlled it. So yeah, there's a few things. The Spanish colonized Cuba, Hispaniola, which is now the Dominican Republic and Haiti, although the French later took over Haiti. They colonized Jamaica, which the British later took. They had control of Argentina, Chile, Peru, Mexico, California, Texas. One of the major reasons that they had these areas was their conquistadors were sent, divided the local native tribes amongst themselves, and then destroyed them. And then enslaved those who were left over, and the natives died off from large exposure to disease. And because they lost the native population that was supposed to harvest these popular crops called cash crops like tobacco, sugar, indigo, things like that, they brought in people from Africa as slaves, trading in the African slave trade throughout the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries in order to fill up their countries with slaves. So that's what happened. I visited Asturias in the north, which is very green, different geography, and Islam did not spread it. Asturias, very different area, and then you have the Basque regions. I mean, Spain was not one country, even with the various different, even with Islam taken into account or taken out of account. Rather, Spain had different areas. There was Castile and Leon; those were the two major provinces. There was Aragon; that was another major province. There was Navarre, which was its own kingdom for a while. I think that's where the Asturias area is. You had the Pyrenees, obviously separate, creating a very distinct area. The Basque people in the north consider themselves distinctly different from the rest of the Spanish. They have their own language. The Catalonian provinces developed their own dialect of Spanish, which is different in pronunciation from mainstream Spanish and certainly from Hispanic Espanol, which I speak. Let me see. Do you think that if the British Empire hadn't been so reluctant to reform, it could have survived, or at least could have evolved into something that could have lasted to this day? Not sure. I don't know. I think that the British were in a pickle, in a difficult situation, and I think that decolonization and freedom, individual rights and opportunities, this was at the heart of British political ideology as well as American political ideology, and the Soviets saw imperialism as just being capitalistic nonsense. And so the British were really in a pickle after the last World War as to what they were going to do. And they eventually were basically pressured by the US and the Soviet Union to decolonize rapidly, especially in Africa. Granada has a lot of, because it's the last Muslim province that stood in the southern part of Spain, although there are many areas in Spain that continue to bear the marks of Islamic influence in architecture, art, literature, and science. And some of the most incredible advancements of the Islamic Golden Age were in the Umayyad Caliphate in Spain. In 661, the Umayyads defeated the last Muslim caliph, the direct follower of Muhammad, the Rashtun Caliph Ali, and established a new kingdom and an Islamic state. The Umayyad dynasty controlled this until the middle of the 9th century, or was it, I think it's the 9th century, or the late 7th, 8th century, and they conquered North Africa and most of the Middle East, and eventually they're the ones that got to Spain in 710. Eventually, they were driven out by a new caliphate from Baghdad called the Abbasid Caliphate. And the Abbasid Caliphate, which would control that region for 4 centuries, to some extent or another, other kingdoms would, like the Seljuks and the Mamelukes and the Ayyubids, would pop up and push them out of power. But the Abbasids drove the Umayyads out, and the Umayyads eventually settled in Spain, the region that they had conquered some decades previously. I think the Umayyads got pushed out in the 700s. It was in the mid 8th century. I mean, you could argue the Commonwealth is that, but I think the Commonwealth is just a load of nonsense, basically the King Charles fan club. Well, believe me, in America, that fan club has very few members. No offense. I love Queen Elizabeth. I love so much about British history. A lot of Americans don't like King Charles. Muslim don't kill children. Yeah. Some do, some don't. Did you know Pope Benedict XVI was a member of the Hitler Youth? That was something that was coming out, and that is one of the reasons many people believe he resigned and gave up the papacy. Friendly said Ferdinand and Isabel are a power couple in a previous video. They definitely are. I've talked about different power couples in history, Victoria and Albert, Peter the Great and Catherine the First. And Ferdinand and Isabel are probably the definitive one I could think of. Shah Jahan and and Mahal, his nice name, I forgot her first name, but her name was Mahal, and that's where Taj Mahal comes from. They're power couples all throughout human history, and Ferdinand and Isabel are probably the best ever. Did you know that at first the Pope was actually elected by the people of Rome instead of cardinals? Kind of, yes. They developed the College of the Cardinals, the more international Catholicism, which means universal, became. Hello, Nugs, good to see you. Were the ancient peoples very clever, or all the medieval people very stupid? No. I don't believe that the medieval people were any. I don't think that I'm any smarter than Aristotle. I think Aristotle is significantly more intelligent than me. I think I have more access to more information than Aristotle did, but Aristotle knew a lot more, was able to. So this is something I was talking about with someone who was commenting on the videos earlier this week. And by the way, if you leave a comment on my video and it somehow gets flagged, I don't do that, and I approve almost every comment. Actually, I approve every single comment on this channel, even people who say horrifying things to me because I don't have an opinion they like recently. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think that. I don't know why I brought that up. Dang, I'm losing my train of thought. I don't think I'm any smarter than the ancients in certain ways. The people knew different things at different times that helped them survive in their different areas. And our way is easy access to tons of information that we can learn very quickly, which is good for our intelligence. Oh, that's what I was going to bring up. I pointed out that knowledge, intelligence, and intelligence and wisdom are different. All of them. Knowledge isn't just knowing certain things. Intelligence is how you learn what you know and how you develop connections and understanding of the knowledge you have been thrown at. I don't just throw out facts at you. Sometimes I do, but I also bring understanding and connectivity to other issues. Wisdom is applying the knowledge and intelligence you have in a practical sense to help you through things. So I know a lot about history. I see the connections in history, and I use those connections in history to deliver information to you to make myself money. There you go. There's all three. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Let's go. Have a Q on history, money? Good question. Yeah, go ahead. LeBron is not a Muslim. If you're talking about LeBron James, he's not a Muslim. He's a Christian. Except African colonialism was not bad for other countries, isn't it? The Africans don't think so. Real Muslims don't kill. Muhammad Ali, Mecca. Okay, there's plenty of Muslims who don't kill, and there's plenty of Muslims who are violent butchers. And there's plenty of Christians who are violent butchers, and there's plenty of Christians who don't kill. Judge a religion by its precepts and its historical narrative and what has happened where it has gone. That is how, but I'm not even going to make value judgments on religion. I'm going to talk about the history around it. So, could you do a live stream on the 100 Years' War? That would be a fun one. I've never done that before. That's a good topic. I should have put that in the options. But yeah, maybe next week. And do you know much about Andorra and Monaco, microstates, I guess? Yeah, Andorra, I think, is the longest extant European country that has gone by the same name or something like that. These are areas, I think Monaco's near France. Andorra, I don't know exactly where Andorra is. You have Liechtenstein in Germany, you have Luxembourg between Germany and France, where they're basically these little countries. Vatican City obviously is in the city of Rome. It's the smallest country in the world, but it's its own sovereign state. It is not, according to the Lateran Treaty, which Mussolini was the one who created the Vatican. Or created Vatican City. The Vatican already existed, but he created Vatican City with the Lateran Treaty, but basically established the Pope as sovereign over a country, a small country inside of Rome. Americans make action movies? Yep, Americans make action movies. No, people love violence, and and men love testosterone things. That's what sports is. Sports is taking war and applying it to a usually non-violent, usually non-lethal method. Salinger, good to see you again. Yeah, they're city-states, that's true. Israel every day killing children. Okay, we know this, Sengiz. Yes, I don't want to talk about that. I've talked about that topic to death. Every time Simon is here, someone has to bring it up, because every time we're here, somebody brings it up. Except yesterday. No one brought it up yesterday. Why are the Bedouins currently attacking Druze forces in Syria? So I talk about this on my news updates every day, but basically here's what's happening. In 2014, the United States and other Western allies did what they could to help overthrow Bashar al-Assad by arming and equipping Syrian rebels and attacking the Syrian military. The Syrian rebels were not one monolithic group. They were different types of groups, some more militant than others, but everything they were trying to do was overthrow Bashar al-Assad, who was the dictator of the region. In late 2024, they were successful. In a surprising, shocking turn of events, the war, which had seemingly simmered down, shot up again as they overtook some of the most major cities, including Damascus. Assad fled to his friend Putin in Russia, and Ahmed al-Sharaa, the leader of a al-Qaeda terrorist, it was previously the Americans thought it was a terrorist group, now they're buddy-buddy with it, go figure, group, took power. And he's supposed to be the interim president, but a lot of people think he's going to be there for a long time. And he has set about creating a new Islamic state there. And the immediate targets of this Islamic State were the Alawite tribe, which is what the supporters of Assad were. Assad was from the Alawites. His father took over in the 1970s. You had the Druzes, who are a religious minority that are often persecuted in Islamic states throughout the Middle East, and you had Christians and Jews. Israel, not really Jews, but Christians in that region that began being targeted. Israel, which has a multicultural society that includes many Druzes, believes that it has a responsibility to undermine the government of Syria, increase its own geopolitical standing in the Middle East, and also attack the Syrians. So they saw this as a win-win to arm al-Hijra, which is a Druze militant group. So many Druzes from Israel who were Syrian, who had fled, went back to Syria to fight with the al-Hijra militia. Meanwhile, the Bedouins who live in that area, who are backed up by the Syrian government, moved in and are fighting with the Druzes as well. So you've got Islamic Muslims versus Druzes who are backed by Jews. And then the Israelis, to back up the Druzes, hit several targets, including in Damascus. The United States condemned this completely. And the interesting thing that I'm noticing, if you do want to talk about Israel, and I guess I will just for a second, because it is kind of interesting, the United States is starting to turn away from Israel slightly. You have the bombing of a Christian church that killed 3 people the other day. You have the attacks in Syria, which just seem like unmitigated warfare. The Druzes and the Syrians made peace, and the Israelis and the Syrians made peace with the United States and Qatar, once again getting in the middle, just like they did in the 12-day war last month. So there's a quick description of what's going on and why that's happening in that area of the world. I don't predict history. I don't predict what's going to happen next. This interrupted normalization talks between Syria and the Israelis that have been going on, some of them even in Azerbaijan, which is a fascinating country right now. Azerbaijan, which no one talks about, which has been at war with Armenia for a while, kind of in a halting right now, but is literally has people who live in Russia who have been arrested by the Russian government. Lots of crazy stuff going on in that area of the world, in the Transcaucasus. What is the term called when people from a particular country or region are being hated, not necessarily due to skin color or race? Nativism, xenophobia, if they're from a different xenophobia. I think it's based on an ancient Greek man. But xenophobia is the fear of someone who is different than you. Bigotry is the hatred of somebody who is religiously or culturally different than you, and racism is obviously someone who has physical traits that are different from you that makes them of another ethnic group. Yes, war is terrible. Nothing is okay with me. Nothing is okay with me, Sengiz. I don't know what you are talking about. What is historical? It's just a subjection. Let me see. What is your opinion on the USS Liberty? Kay, thank you for bringing it up, and welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. The assassination of Fouquet Bernadotte. I used to know who Fouquet Bernadotte is. I talked about him on the channel before. You're going to have to refresh my mind on him, Kay? But USS Liberty, so in 1967, the Six-Day War happened. The Israelis preemptively attacked the Syrians, Jordanians, and Egyptians who controlled areas within Israel, including Gaza, the West Bank, and, of course, the Egyptians controlled the Sinai Desert. The Israelis took over all 3 of these areas, and with a preemptive strike, were actually able to successfully defeating them. The Israelis attacked the USS Liberty, a U.S. ship that was sent to the region to back them up, and tried to get the U.S. in a longer war with the Egyptians, hoping that they could overthrow the Egyptian government of Gamal Abdel Nasser, who was the country's first independent ruler, kind of. But basically, the United States did not fall for it. Israel has taken heavy flak for it and continues to do so as more and more people become aware of it. The Israelis attacked a U.S. ship and killed several people aboard. I don't know how many people they killed. But yes, it's one of the worst moments in Israeli history. It is a black mark on the Israeli-U.S. relations, and a lot of people are thinking about it right now with the bombing of the church in Gaza. It's the only Catholic church in Gaza, and of course with tens of millions of Catholics in the United States. Even the Trump administration is not going to back up Israel on this one, and some people in Israel are worried that the U.S. is going to start reconsidering some of its foreign aid investments in Israel right now. So, how close are we to repeating World War II? Technically, I think there have been 3 world wars randomly ignored, but I'm not going to randomly ignore you here. We'll call it World War II for the sake of what you're saying. I don't see it as a repeat necessarily, unless it's the United States versus China, in which case you have 2 really big superpowers like Germany and the United States. Between France and Spain, yep. I'd love to go now. I want to go to there. San Marino has the longest lasting Republican constitution and has been amended, but it's still the same constitution. Interesting. There's a new Mussolini TV show called Son of a Century. Apparently it's good. I thank you for the recommendation, Kay. I'll have to go look at it. Mussolini is an interesting character to me. Obviously, he's a brutal authoritarian dictator who got in with Hitler and the militant Japanese. And if you read what the Japanese actually did to the Chinese and the POWs, US and British, it's absolutely awful what they did. I just did a video on Aung San because it's the day he was killed. He was the leader of the Burmese resistance against the Japanese, who was killed because he had originally sided with the Japanese and then betrayed them. What the Japanese did to the Burmese, to the Indonesians, to the Vietnamese, to a bunch of different people was pretty awful during the war. But Mussolini, obviously the first chemical weapons use in history was against the Ethiopians by Mussolini. I'm not saying anything's good about Mussolini. If Mussolini had just kept his fingers out of the Nazi pie, he would have probably been able to stay in power and live until he died naturally without being hung by his own people. If he had just said, you know what, I'm out, just like Franco did in Spain, the United States would have won the war a lot sooner, gone to him and said, are you a communist? He would have said, I'm not a communist, I hate communism, and they would have allowed him to stay in power, just like they did with Franco, Pinochet, and what's the other one? Oh, geez, Perón. Anyone who was not a communist was good enough for the United States, which led to horrible people like Manuel Noriega, Juan Perón, and Dien Bien Phu, Nam Dinh. I think he was the leader of the Vietnamese. The United States eventually found out he was so bad they had the CIA kill him. Yeah, every time I'm here, maybe it's just because I visited Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and the West Bank just before COVID. How dare you, Simon? You are responsible for all of this. But actually, it happens all the time here. There's only been like 2 or 3 times where I've gone through the entire time without having to talk about the Israel situation, but I talked about it, and I talk about it as fairly as I can. Do you think there is much of a chance there would be a future genocide in the U.S.? Also, my opinions about organizations that monitor potential genocide hotspot in the world. That's interesting. I don't know about that source. I don't know. I mean, any society can fall prey to, you need certain proclivities for genocide. One of the biggest proclivities for genocide is authoritarian governments. Authoritarian governments are very good at genocides. The Nazis, the Soviet Union, Maoist China, you could argue even the military of Japan. Obviously, a lot of people have questions about Israel right now and what's happening in Gaza. But I don't consider them to be necessarily authoritarian. They're a coalition government and their majority party just lost all of its power, or will lose its power. They're in the next election. But genocide, we throw that word around, I think, too blithely. But the truth of the matter is authoritarian governments are very good at human rights abuses, ethnic cleansing, displacement of individuals, and killing them. When they displace them, just look at what the Turks did to the Armenians, the Greeks, and the Syrian Christians at the beginning of the 20th century, in the first major genocide of that century, which would have about 7 or 8. You need an authoritarian government. You need a targeted population, be it the kulaks, be it the Jews, be it whoever. You need and I don't know, maybe this isn't going to get monetized now because of what I'm talking about, but what the heck, it's history. Sue me. You need a willing populace that will do anything in their power to take away rights slowly but surely and eventually encroach on those people's freedoms and then dehumanize and kill them. So I think we should give the Vatican to the dwarves as their own country. It makes the smallest country for the smallest people. Oh my God. That if it were giant, yeah, that's a weird way to. Yes, getting my Middle Eastern news from the host. Well, Simon, I'm doing news every day. I got so tired of how the media just spins everything, both sides, by the way, that I just decided to report the news objectively. And you know how you report the news objectively? You don't use adjectives. You don't use adverbs. You don't use commentary. It's not Donald Trump did this crazily or Donald Trump did this triumphantly. It's Donald Trump did this. Boom. His news delivered to you. The Human Rights Watch, yeah. In school, we glanced over the Barbary Wars, but now it seems interesting. Was Jefferson trying to fight a battle across the globe? Basically, the Barbary Coast Pirates were a offshoot of the Berbers. They were also condoned by, I think they were part of the Ottoman Empire, if not condoned by them, to basically kidnap and attack different ships of non-Muslims in the area and enslave some of their people or kill them. This had been happening for centuries. Jefferson was sick and tired of it, so he commissioned the U.S. Marine Corps in their first major military operation to fight them, and they eventually defeated them. The reason the Marines had their white collars on their suits is to up so high is to protect from them getting beheaded in a fight with Barbary pirates, by the way. Did the Pope say anything about the shelling of the Catholic Church? The Pope called for an immediate ceasefire, which I agree with. AC, which ancient Mesopotamian ruler, I predict history that's not elections. Like I was going to predict, I predict that you will say something bad about the United States before this chat is over. And by the way, we're almost halfway through our 2-hour special. We're celebrating this weekend because we just got monetized. The YouTube gods have deemed that we are necessary for their time to waste money on us. So thank you for that, YouTube. I hope you enjoyed taking 45% of it, and then Uncle Sam will take the 40% of the 55% left over, which means I'll have approximately nothing. But it's okay. And then inflation hits. Oh boy. AC, which ancient Mesopotamian ruler is credited with creating one of the world's earliest and most complete written legal codes? You're thinking of Hammurabi, the great Hammurabi, who created this covenant-like bond between him and his people, which actually, if you look at the Ten Commandments and the Jewish laws from the Old Testament, there's a lot of parallelism because they're a ancient Middle Eastern and Near Eastern civilization dependent on laws. The difference for the Jews was their laws was with a god. They were supposed to be a theocracy, and obviously Hammurabi was a king of several of the city-states in that area. I love music. Great to see you. We're going early today to do 2 hours because they can't do 2 hours at 6 p.m. Eastern, so we started at 3 p.m. Eastern. LeBron James is also a massive racist, so Christians can also be racist. Yes, they certainly can, and they've been very, very good at that. U.S. not them country, U.S. no culture, stealing land. I don't know what you're talking about. The most fascinating thing about Mussolini is his economic system, very interesting. He basically thinks that each industry should have a company, the government, and a trade union. Yes, it wasn't pure capitalism, and it wasn't pure socialism. I hadn't heard of the bombing. This is significant. How concerned are you that a new intifada could be issued? Is this PA more tolerant as opposed to the PLO? No, the PA is less tolerant than the PLO. The PLO is actually pretty much the moderate party. The PA is a little bit more anti-Israel existing, and then Hamas is just crazy. So, and whenever one of the three has made a proposal, it should go to a committee made up. Yep. Let me see here, catching up with the chat. But the myth still matters. This post explores how ruling elites often ignore outrage. Yep. I love that article. I loved writing it. Thank you for putting it on blast, Simon. Do you believe that there has been a moral code shift across the world? I know people have always been violent, but it seems like more needless deaths. I think no. Actually, we've become far more moral in the way we fight wars and carry out wars in the last century than we were in centuries past. Leaflets, warning of people. The difference is all technology. In fact, I'm starting to believe that the biggest differences in history are made because of technology. The Europeans were not any more oppressive or racist than the Africans, North or Central, South Native Americans, the Chinese, the Japanese, any of the other groups of people. What allowed them to be more disproportionately cruel and oppressive to these people was the technology that allowed them to go all across the world and create trade networks and colonies. I think, and if you look at it, when you get to the Great War in 1914 to 1918, what makes it significantly nasty and brutal and harsh and destructive is how ahead of its time the technology had gotten to the point where it was able to kill huge amounts of people in horrifying ways. So there you go. I think the technology, I think that you can kill so many people so quickly, and then the use of the atom bombs in the Third World War in the 1940s obviously is a huge part of that. Let me see here. I'm still catching up to the chat, guys, so if I haven't answered, I promise that I will soon. But yeah, I think it's the technology that's made it bad. Let me see. I've got communism is one party authoritarian rule, whereas capitalism is two-party authoritarian rule. There you go. The last comment was in regards to the term genocide. As I know you are a bit beyond the chat. Some comments probably seem out of place. Okay, no worries. I don't think you really are well versed in history at all. You are more opinionated. You bring up media as the first red flag in current politics. You are more of a think piece channel. Yes, totally. All I talk about is politics, media, and news. One news short a day versus 5 to 10 history shorts a day. Yes, clearly. Clearly, I'm just all about. Why do you think that is what I'm wondering. Let me see. Honestly, technically, communism doesn't even believe in a state, so you can have a communist party which rules a country. Interesting. Good afternoon. Harry, you seem to do research-oriented. You do. Yeah, okay, let's go. Are you expecting YouTube to pay you about $20 per 1,000 views? I don't know what they're going to pay me, and I don't really care. I'm just doing what I love, and I really enjoy it. And I know, and the idea that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life is not true. I work on this channel a lot. I do a lot of work and a lot of backbreaking work sometimes. And it's not always easy or pleasant, but it's enjoyable. I really love it. Oh, your vid regarding Obama administration, Trump, Putin mess. Thank you. I would never have known that. I hate the most so-called news organizations. I slam both sides by just reporting the facts. Let me see here. Dude is another Billy Carson grifter. I don't know who Billy Carson is. I hope he's as good looking as I am. Yes, thank you. I love music. You are, and you are on Patreon. It's so great to see you and have you here. Let me see. Why does modern China not seem to value its history before the Great Revolution? Because you have to justify the Great Revolution. You have to justify the People's Republic of China. And, I mean, you have the Shen Yun performers who always advertise China before communism. They go around touring. There are many nationalist organizations, but almost none of them are in China that actually talk about Chinese history from the ancient empire. But the ancient empire is a leftover of imperialist capitalism that sold its soul to the British capitalists. So you can't have admiration for it, especially the Qing dynasty in the 19th and 20th centuries. Yeah. What is brutal war like Israel killing children? It is brutal. I don't know what you're asking, Sengiz. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I just wonder, what are you still asking? And yes, you can join for free. You can follow me here on Patreon to get early access for free. It's easy to do that. All you have to do is like and subscribe. I'm not going to pressure you to give money. That's only if you want to, if you want to donate, if you want to super chat, if you want to do any of that stuff, get a membership, get your own badges and stuff like that. I'd be very happy to have that. Keep informing us, man. I love what you do and what you share. Not enough people know or understand history. Mystic, I so appreciate that. That's so kind of you. And that is going to be our pinned comment because I really, really, really like that. It's very kind of you. Okay, I don't know why we send him. I don't know why we put Sengiz on the timeout. Can we focus on something else? Go to any protest you want. I'm assuming you live in democracy. Yes, there you go. Yes, thank you, Simon. I appreciate that. Sengiz, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, by the way. I just don't know the point of it. This is when I have people on the channel come in here and they accuse me of being a Zionist. They accuse me of being okay with killing children. They accuse me of all these things that I don't ever say. I have never said any of these things. I'm going to make this clear once again, just so that everyone can go back. And if they want, I'm going to save a moment so that they can actually watch it. I'm going to post it so that people actually get my dang opinion on this issue on record once and for all. The war needs to stop. The children need to stop dying. The hostages need to come home. Netanyahu needs to stand for trial and election. The Palestinian Authority is corrupt to the bone and needs to get the heck out of Dodge. Hamas needs to be completely dismantled, like Abbas called for himself this past week. And you need to remediate a two-state solution where the West Bank becomes a Palestine-like country and Israel still manages to exist. There. And then Israel needs to pay to rebuild Gaza. Done. You break it, you buy it. There. And the neighboring countries need to probably need to house the Palestinians for some time in that region until their area is suitable to go home, and then they need to be brought back to Gaza, and then we can figure out the Gaza situation, because I don't think that one is easy. I don't even have a great idea of how to fix it. There. That is a simple, moderate perspective on the issue. I don't usually give my opinion. I'm sorry, AC. I know I said I don't usually give it, but on this one, I'm going to give it because everybody thinks that I support this or that. That is what I support. I think that's fair. I think it's even keeled. I think it puts blame on both countries for doing this. I don't think that the United States has realized how Israel can take advantage of it. I don't think that other people in the United States have realized just how dangerous some of these radical terrorist groups actually are. Fair perspective. Now we get back to other stuff. And that moment's going to be saved. And you know what? You get 3 long-form videos this weekend. You get my Roman Kings video. Please go watch it. Harry and I have a couple of really good comments there. You get I do compilations of my news segments. So if you don't want to watch every single short, you can watch my 6-minute video where I put them all together. And then I'm going to release this one, which will be just me talking on live streams. I call it Talking About History. And then I'll have a long form video for you on Monday. I don't know what it's going to be about. I'll probably make a poll. Boom. Over. I think that's an extremely fair perspective. And if you don't agree, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. Yes, and they are mutually exclusive, Simon. Simon, let me just see. What about Woodrow Wilson? Fool or fashion icon? No. Please, let's not talk about Woodrow Wilson. That's all we talked about yesterday. I'm not a huge Woodrow Wilson fan, so I'm going to say fool. Let me see here. But Israel has a right to exist within UN borders. Yep, there you go. If he wants to move on, folks, don't take it personal. We like to limit our topic time here. If he says move on, it's for a reason. Grow up and go. Google is free. Google is also wrong a lot of the time. So Substack is good too. Yes, go and read my stuff on Substack. I've talked about this issue on Substack. And we also are now on TikTok. If you need an outlet, go there. Oh my goodness. The stuff I see on here is like half of it. Well, actually, I get more vitriol in here because I'm more active on here. But on TikTok, I see some people really slamming all sorts of things. People use the internet in really constructive manners, and then they use the internet to hide behind anonymity. Yes, I know, I'm anonymous, but I don't use my anonymous platform to slam other people, and I never would. If I disagree with someone, I'm going to explain why I disagree with them, but I'm not going to slam and attack their character. As Cicero said, Socrates, when the debate is over, the loser resorts to insults and whining. He didn't say whining, but it's pretty implicit. Yes, he is more than welcome to come back. So does anyone have a topic they want to talk about? A historical topic, a question about history. We're in our first hour. We've got another hour to go. I'm really liking this. A nice, cozy, quiet, small vibe. And if you don't like the fact that there's not 100,000 questions in the chat, that's not my fault. We ebb and we flow. Sometimes we have 5 people. Sometimes we have 50 people. And it's fun, and I enjoy it. Yes, Harry, go ahead and write up the rules for our religion, because I'm too tired to do it myself. So, does anyone have a question or topic about history they would like me to discuss? And hopefully no one has taken my ideas personally. These are just most of these are my facts, and some of these are my opinions. I'm still waiting for AC to explain to me how I am not factual, though. So, Theodore Roosevelt. Oh, I've done several different videos, long form and short form. Hello, Kurgan, on Theodore Roosevelt. Absolutely love the guy. Fascinating character. One of the premier was a sickly child, and in order to overcome his sickness, became a boxer. And by the way, I like that you said Theodore, not Teddy. He hated being called Teddy Roosevelt, but he loved the teddy bear. The teddy bear was constructed when a newspaper writer from Ohio drafted a cartoon of him saving a bear, because apparently there was a young cub abandoned by its parents in the wilderness, and Roosevelt didn't want to shoot it on a hunting trip in about, I think, 1902. And so from that came this article with this cartoon, and from that cartoon, a toy maker, I think the toy maker was in Ohio, came up with the teddy bear. And so that's where that comes from. Yeah. I don't know if I have no description because I just go live. And you know what I find, Simon? Sometimes when I go live and I have no descriptions or nothing and it's just spontaneous, it's not pre-planned, I get like a bunch of viewers. And sometimes when I have everything decked out, I get 10. So it is what it is. I'm not that big about it. 24 times a day, 2. Oh my goodness. Grace. Yes. Yes, Harry. Yes. Your mother's maiden last name and your social security number so you can really contribute to the religion. Hello, Viper. Good to see you again. Why did Hitler lose the Battle of Stalingrad? Basically, I think attacking both Leningrad and Stalingrad at the same time was a mistake. I think Hitler felt that he had overwhelmed the Soviets and he was overconfident, and that turned out to be vitriolic. Obviously, the Russian winter is always going to kick in and be bonus points for them. So, yeah. Also, the Soviets, he underestimated how well developed their military was. Well, if us mods get him to 100,000 subs, then we will most likely have full-time jobs. Yes, you most likely will. I'd be going live probably every day for hours. Yes. I'll do the Hassan Piker stuff, where I go for like 6 hours. I don't know how that guy does that without using the restroom, by the way. Welcome to the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. If you're just joining us, this is our special 2-hour Q&A, Ask Me Anything. As we celebrate monetization here, consider liking and subscribing, becoming a Friendly Neighborhood Historian. We are ahead of our usual time due to time constraints. We're going to be going to about 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And if you like history or social studies, drop a topic in the chat, and I will be happy to answer you. And yes, the T-34 was a great tank. No way affiliated. Thank you for joining us while driving. Just don't crash on my account. If Hitler didn't turn on the Soviets, would the world look different? Yes, I think he would have won the war. I don't know what the United States would have done. I think the U.S. might have joined the war sooner, actually, and then you would have had the U.S. and the British fighting the Germans in the West. They might have been able to come to some sort of stalemate and arrangement, but I don't know that you get the overwhelming victory, and you don't get the Cold War necessarily. So, what's this all about? Colt, this is the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. If you have a question about history or social studies, drop it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer. Oh, and I should save that last 5 minutes because that explains my exact feelings on all of these issues. We have caught up with the chat, so your questions will be answered shortly. Yes. Haile Selassie, importance. He's the centrifugal figure in the Rastafari religion. He's considered to be the second coming of Jesus Christ and Haile Selassie sometimes looks like it. He did a fantastically brave thing. The understanding, even in the 20th century, implicitly, in the first half of the 20th century especially, was that African kingdoms and societies were inferior, even if they happened to be independent. Ethiopia and Liberia were the only two fully independent African societies in the 20th century. Ethiopia, because of its Christian origins, and it had tricked both the British and the Italians in the 1800s, and Liberia, because the United States kept the Germans and the British and the French from colonizing it because the United States had created Liberia. That's why Liberia's capital is named after a U.S. president, Monrovia, and that's why the president of Liberia, unbeknownst to Donald Trump for some reason, speaks really good English, aside from that. Haile Selassie was extraordinarily confident even after he lost power and was overthrown by the Italian invasion in 1935, a possible candidate for the start of what I like to call World War III, what you might call World War II. Selassie went to the League of Nations and stood up and condemned the Italian attack. He brought attention to the suffering of his people. He stood by the Allies. He became a great friend to the West, and the West became a great friend to him. They went in there, they defanged the Italians, took them out, and Selassie returned to power. He was eventually overthrown and assassinated by the communists in the 1970s. So yeah, the importance of him is he's a religious figure, but also he's a politically brave man coming from an African country, which is usually seen as inferior to the Europeans, yet still has the guts, even after losing all of his power, to stand up and condemn what the Italians were doing, because what the Italians did in Ethiopia was absolutely awful. And Selassie became a very, very close friend of the West, which they definitely needed at that time, going forward. And eventually, this would be his downfall, as a communist revolution would see him killed by his own people. It's a tragic story, but it's one of great bravery and strength. And I mean, he was able to stay in power for 30 more years after the end of the war. 1800s religious Christian zealotism, the influx of groups who came into the U.S. We can do this in an academic way. Topic, brave one. 1800s religious Christian zealotism. What are you referring to? Are you talking about Manifest Destiny? If Hitler hadn't first declared war on the USA, would Roosevelt still have concentrated on Europe? The British probably would have forced his hand eventually. It's a good question, though. No, he is the third coming of Jesus Christ. Oh, yeah, Woodrow Wilson, Jesus Christ, got it. Did the French turn the tide of the U.S. Civil War or not really? The British and the French refusing to join the war because Lincoln made it about slavery didn't do that much. I think Ulysses S. Grant was the turning point of the war, and, of course, Gettysburg. I've always loved history, never could pursue it. Ended up doing physics, always has been curious about the Black Death, though. I love your honesty, Colt, and I love learning about physics, so maybe you can teach me a few things, because I don't know much about it at all. But the truth of the matter is the Black Death, I think it originally came from the Middle East. It settles in the ports of Venice, which is one of the biggest trading cities in the Mediterranean at the time. And rat fleas carrying the disease infect rats who get into these cargo shipments and infect the population starting about 1345, 1346. By 1347, that really hits all of Europe. About a third to half of the population dies because of it. This changes the stratification. It basically brings about the end of serfdom and requires kingdoms to basically to rely more on peasant labor, to value peasant labor more, because most of the people who died were indeed peasants. So there's a few examples there. Why did Paul von Hindenburg facilitate Hitler's rise into power? Hindenburg hated communism and was worried that the Great Depression created political instability, and that the communists would try another Spartacus uprising like they did in 1920. And so his basic attitude was, the better the devil you know on the right than the devil you don't know on the left, although the Nazis are not on the right. That's a misconception. Viper, the UK and France supported the CSA. Kind of. The British relied on cotton imports a lot from the Confederates, but they were willing to kind of cut ties and not normalize relations with them, which would have basically forced the Union to deal with the French and British, putting pressure on them to end the war after the Emancipation Proclamation. How mobs could do whatever they want in like 60s or 70s. What the FBI? The FBI tried to hide stories about the mafia, and then when it became obvious that from police raids that there was a mafia, that there was organized crime, and it was led by Italian gangs all across the major cities of the United States, the FBI said, "Oh yeah, we knew this all the time." One of the major rumors as to why this is the case is that the FBI had damning evidence of J. Edgar Hoover and his escapades, as well as the fact that he was a closeted homosexual in a time when when homosexuality was more in the closet, and of course Hoover was the paragon for conservatism and the right wing, so he would have really looked bad and like a hypocrite to his base because he was not only a homosexual but also a cross-dresser. Do we ever think there will be peace in the Congo? So you've got Congo and Rwanda at the end. I mean, that place has been fighting for 60 years, ever since the Dutch left, and the Dutch were awful to the Congolese before then. But now you've got M23, you've got the UPC, you've got these different factions in Southern Congo. The Congo is huge, and there's many different groups. The M23, for instance, continues the fight because they are Tutsis, and they believe that they have been oppressed and discriminated against by the Congolese government. And yes, only a short. 'Tis but a short. I always heard it was crime rather than Venice, the Black Death. Crimea. Well, it starts in Crimea. It eventually goes. It doesn't go to Russia until the 1350s. Actually, it was Eastern origin. Venice is where it comes to, not where it comes from. The Black Death is so interesting, especially how plague doctors came about. Yeah, the plague doctors. They didn't wear that mask, the famous one with the hooked nose, to actually keep from getting the disease. I think there was a symbolism about it. I can't remember what it is, but we've got Ring Around the Rosie. You've got all of these strange and creepy traditions coming from the Black Death. Yeah. And yes, thank you, Kurgan. I really appreciate that. Yo, super. History, social studies, and the like. Got a topic? Drop in the chat. The Reichstag. Reichstag. Yes, of course, cross-dresser. I don't believe he was transgender. He was a cross-dresser. The old term was transvestite, but obviously that has kind of moved on. Cross-dresser in the sense that he would dress in the clothes of a woman with his lover, who he lived with in a secret apartment in Washington, D.C. Leopold was a butcher. Yeah, he was a nasty guy, Leopold II. He actually personally owned the Congo, but he was so abusive to the people that the Europeans basically defanged him and defrocked him, and the Belgians took over the Congo after that for about 50 years. Why does Alexander stop right before India? He gets to India, he gets defeated a couple of times, but knowing Alexander, he was going to figure out a way to defeat them. And then his soldiers demand that he goes back. And yeah, there you go. Yeah, they had the beak. Yep, they pushed people away. That was what it was for. Do you know what Italy is very interesting in? Do you know what Italy is very interesting in any other country? A city that is flooded and stinks of would be considered a failure, but not Venice. Not at that time, not in that historical period. So we're at 5%, so I'm going to have to move over and start charging my phone. Let's see here. Yeah. Was to have a thing with a scented smell at the end so that you couldn't smell the plague with the plague. Yes, it was to carry the stench away. And people, and the people dying and rotting, you couldn't bury everyone. You've got a third to half of the population dying. It's horrifying. Simon, most Americans would trip over themselves rushing to vote for Indian for president, assuming they agreed with him. What do you mean by that, Rodolfo? Did those plague doctors' masks even work? No, they didn't have any cures for it back then. There were some people like Guy de Chiliac who wrote the most extensive medical volume on it. The Malefice Maleficarum, one of the most fascinating things I ever learned on the History Channel before it just became about aliens and people selling things. But Guy de Chiliac's Malefice Maleficarum He describes how he survived it, but there were some people who the Black Death was a variant of the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague had existed throughout history. This wasn't new. It was just a much more virulent strain of a plague that had already killed tens of millions of people all throughout the ancient and early or in classical world and the medieval world for centuries. So you have the plague of Justinian. I have a book, Justinian's Flea, I'm going to start reading very soon, that really made 536 a big downer for a lot of people all over the world. You have plague outbreaks all the time in medieval Europe, the Middle East, and the Byzantine Empire. So it's not uncommon at all. One thing that's quite interesting is you don't see the plague doing as much damage in certain areas of the world with better sanitation, such as the Middle Eastern caliphates. The Jews in Europe received huge amounts of discrimination and anti-Semitism because they had the kosher dietary rules, which require ceremonial washing, which actually kept them from getting the disease as much as the rest of the Europeans. So the Europeans believed that they had poisoned their drinking water and given them the plague. Yes, that is where all of those ridiculous stereotypes come from. I'm still trying to figure out who came up with the idea that they run the weather, though. So many war happening right now in the world. You think there is a chance of it turning into World War III according to history? I think there's already been a World War III, so the next one will be World War IV. It's possible if the United States and China go to war over Taiwan. That's where it's going to happen. It's not going to happen in the Middle East. The United States had an opportunity to start something. They really kind of didn't. And I just don't see it happening in Ukraine. We've been saying this for 3 years and nothing's come of it. So I see it happening in Taiwan and Japan and Australia. And China's trying to assess how much they're invested in keeping Taiwan independent. The United States has continually said that it will give money to Taiwan. So it's going to start anyway. It's going to start on the island of Formosa, as the British called it. Isn't it wild that plague doctors exist at the same time as self-flagellants? Yeah, there were people who believed that God was punishing them for their sins, so they would whip themselves constantly because of the shame. Justinian nearly died of the plague. He's one of the very few people who survived the plague, but he became quite paranoid afterwards. Google's response to, are there any presidents with Native American blood in them? I don't think there's any presidents with Native American blood. There is a vice president, Charles Curtis, in the 1920s, who was the first Native American vice president to Herbert Hoover. Why did Americans need to simplify the English language? I like how you ask that when you misspell why. Like sidewalk instead of pavement, eyeglasses instead of glasses, like gas instead of petrol or diesel. I don't know. Take a lift and think about it. Was there any connection between Teddy Roosevelt and Pocahontas, or is that just a movie stuff? Teddy Roosevelt and Pocahontas? They lived 300 years apart from each other. You're thinking of John Smith. John Smith was a real historical figure, as was Virginia Rolfe, better known as Pocahontas, who was the daughter of a chief of the, I hope it's right, of the Powhatan people. I think it was the Powhatan people. People think his name was Powhatan. It's the Powhatan tribe. And yeah, I don't know if she rescued him, but obviously there was some connection made between the Indians and the settlers. She ended up becoming a Christian and marrying John Rolfe, one of the people there. Smith whipped the colony into shape after communal living had almost completely desecrated them. And she went to England and met King James. She came and she died very, very young. Did the USA bombing of Iran make China more hesitant to invade Taiwan? No. I don't think so at all. Was there any connection between... Oh, I already answered that. History got really weird stuff going on. Is it really no one in the history has ever questioned it? No. People can question history all the time. The fact that we know so many weird stuff is because people asked questions and got answers. Like the fact that Robespierre, we just celebrated the French Revolution with Bastille Day. Go watch my video on it that came out last Monday. But Robespierre was shot, bleeding out in the face, bleeding out from his wound. He was put on trial because they were good, reasonable Frenchmen, following their Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizens and the new French Constitution. They declared him guilty and then killed him with the guillotine, the same instrument he had used to kill thousands of French nobility, clergy, and peasantry who were not on board with the French Revolution the way he has. Some of these comments are hilarious. So glad I don't scroll it. Yes, it's hilarious. It is. Why did the British invade Ireland? The British have been invading Ireland for 1,000 years almost. King Henry II in the 1160s began building farms in the area and eventually got the entire island to declare their fealty to him as as a vassal state. And ever since then, the English, in one way or another, have considered themselves to be the rulers of Ireland. King Henry VIII in the 1500s kicked this up into high gear, eventually establishing himself as the Lord of Ireland, which is a title that I believe British monarchs still use to this day. And then in the 1600s, the British under Oliver Cromwell actually conquered all of Ireland, and it was integrated into and given same political union in 1807 under King George III. And then a century later, Southern Ireland went free. Well, most of Ulster or Northern Ireland, with the Scots-Irish there, became an independent country. But basically, power, land, money, and the ability to oppress other people. There you go. And I have actually gone on record, and I've gotten in trouble for going on record for saying that the Irish were the first and worst example of British oppression, because the British were oppressing them for 7 centuries, even longer probably. Yes, Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern. And I go ahead and vote, and you might have your topic picked and talked about tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. How do you remember this stuff? I love it, so I read about it, I make the connections, and it stays in there. I don't know how. And the more I learn about history, the more I know I don't know about history. There's more things that I don't know, and people are always fact-checking and correcting me. I love Jimmy Carr. I don't know much about Irish politics, but I think there should be one island united. They were on their feet applauding. They loved it. Yeah, that sounds like something. If he was in Ireland, that sounds like something. Even worse than the occupation of the Scots? Well, it depends on how you define colonization. Is colonization going across the sea? Is it going to a foreign land? The Scots and the English were fighting for a long time, to be sure, even longer but really, the fighting with the Scottish really picks up in the 1200s. King Henry III, and then, of course, you've got Edward I, Longshanks. Oh, yeah, that sounds like something, Jimmy. He's a funny guy. Who owns Antarctica? I somewhere heard that it was a little bit owned by Australia, but I really don't have any idea. The British had some stake in the land, as did the Americans and the Soviets, and eventually in the 1960s, they all agreed to basically not colonize it. Do we ever cover prehistoric history here? Yes, all the time, Joe. Jimmy's kind of controversial, but he's a funny guy. What is going on with China and the Philippines? I don't know much. China has been buying up and influencing land and investment in South Asia and in Africa for decades now, seeking to become the world's major trading partner and overcome the United States, and they have succeeded. I think that they don't want the Philippines to support the United States if a war actually breaks out. Thank you for leaving your like, Mary. I really appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a topic about history or social studies you'd like to explore, drop it in the chat. And if you don't, just hang out for the vibes. What is going on with India and Pakistan, honestly? Okay, so here's some history. And if Big Chungus is still here, here's some more Indian history for you guys. Pakistan, so India actually wants to change its name to Bharat, the ancient Sanskrit word for India, because India, the name of India for that region and subcontinent, comes from the Indus Valley civilization, which was in Pakistan, mostly the first ancient civilization in India about 300 years before Jesus. The thing about the British took over that area, and you had the Mughals, who, despite being a Muslim empire, had been very good at integrating and not politically oppressing the majority Hindu population of the subcontinent. The British decided that the best thing to do, and they did the same thing in Palestine, would be to divide the area along religious lines. And so they created Pakistan, the land of the Pakis, which Stan is. You have West Pakistan, East Pakistan. And the middle area was India. There was fighting and contention, and lots of people died. And in 1947, all of these areas became independent countries. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, I think he became the first leader of the Pakistani people. He was their independence movement leader, similar to how Gandhi was in India. And in 1971, East Pakistan became independent and became the country of Bangladesh. So Bangladesh and Pakistan are Muslim-majority countries, and India is a Hindu majority country, and there are regions like Punjab and Kashmir, and one more I keep forgetting, that have part of it in India and part of it in Pakistan. Kashmir has been the most contentious. They fought over it in the 1970s, and they fought over it again just recently because the Indians really want it and the Pakistanis really, really want it. And then the ceasefire was mediated. The United States had a little bit to do with it, but Prime Minister Modi was the main operative there. I forget the name of the leader of Pakistan right now, but they basically agreed to that. Pakistan also wants to build intercontinental ballistic missiles. Both India and Pakistan have nuclear capabilities. So technically speaking, the first war in history between two nuclear powers going on at the same time who are both nuclear, was that war in Kashmir just this year. So history was made with that very short war that happened. What do you think about China saying they had the first humans? I don't think that's true. Humans most likely came from the Middle East and Africa. But Chinese civilization is one of the oldest. People migrated a lot. Yeah. Russia enters the chat. What is the chances of China and India fighting? Over Tibet? Probably pretty high. 14 countries have claims in Antarctica, but there's still one international zone and no country officially owns any part of Africa. Yep, 1954. Thank you, Harry. Gandhi got murked. I don't know what that means. Hello, Frank. Good to see you. If you're just joining us, this is the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. Okay, Frank, calm down. There was a couple of 90-year-old British trains running in India a few years ago. The British brought trains to basically everywhere they went because it made it easier for exploited resources to make it back to the British mainland. What about Himalayan salt? They cool over that. I'm cool over Himalayan salt because Himalayan salt is delicious, Bones. So yeah, I'm going to move over because I've got to charge my phone. But if you're enjoying this, consider, liking and subscribing. All of that good stuff. If you have a question, drop it in the chat. We're going to go for another, 30 minutes or so, because we're doing a 2-hour special because we just reached the second level of monetization here on YouTube. So some really fun stuff happening. Let me see here. I'm curious about this because I see my family falling for Pak India hate propaganda, and I'm so over it. What's Pak India hate propaganda? Is that one side or both sides? Gandhi was a racist. Do you agree? Yeah. Yes, but even more than a racist, he went on a hunger strike to keep the Varna caste system going, even after India gained its independence, because the new government under Jawaharlal Nehru, the first prime minister of India, and the father-in-law of Indira Gandhi, who had no relation to Mohandas Gandhi, they wanted to end. That government wanted to end the Varna system, and Gandhi was totally opposed to it and went on a hunger strike for it. What is going on with the inland Chinese border? What do you mean? Let's see. And Frank, if you like seeing me, you can see more of me, not in that way, by becoming a member here. And yes, thank you. Let me see here. It's one-sided, Indian here. Interesting. What is one-sided? We've got 25. No, it's 35 minutes. Yes, he was towards Africans, and Gandhi spent a lot of time in Africa. He actually was in South Africa for a period of time, and the African National Congress and Mandela got a lot of their ideas from Gandhi. Martin Luther King got a lot of his ideas from Gandhi. So, yeah. And we are caught up with the chat, so I can answer a lot more quickly and a lot more in detail because we don't have a huge crowd today, but it's been fun. We've got some nice new people here that we really enjoy having around. Joe is asking, what is your take on Jesus Christ? Does he have connections to higher powers? Was he just a smooth liar? Did he historically never live? Or do you believe something else? So I don't share my religious beliefs, whatever they might be. You have no idea what religion I am. Simon and Harry, who have been here forever, have no idea what religious affiliation I am, what religious beliefs I do have. Nobody knows. I don't share personal details about myself. They don't know my name either. When it comes to what I can say historically about Jesus, and I don't say Jesus Christ because Christ is, I say it sometimes, but Christ is a title given that assumes that he is the Messiah, the Christian Savior, and I don't necessarily want to use that because that's obviously not what Jews and other groups believe. Jesus of Nazareth historically lived. He was a rabbi in the 1st century, and his belief, I'm going to go with what Tacitus and Josephus, who were not friendly to the Christians, said about him. He lived, he had followers, they believe he died on the cross, and they believe he rose from the dead on the 3rd day. The history is that he did indeed die on the cross. He did indeed live. He had certain claims about himself. Some of them was that he was God, he was the incarnate God, and the Jewish Messiah. He was one of many people who claimed to be the Jewish Messiah in the 1st and 2nd centuries, and was punished by the Romans like Bar Kokhba and the others, and died on a cross, and his disciples claim that he rose from the dead. And so the Christian Gospels and all of the Christian faith is obviously built on this. So, yes, every time I say something mildly supportive of Israel, I say I'm not Jewish. I am not Jewish in this. I mean, that's not, you can be, okay, so this is kind of tough. You can't be, when I say I'm not Jewish, I'm talking about ethnicity. There are non-Jew, people who are not ethnically Jewish who practice Judaism. And who have embraced Judaism as their religion, and they are seen as Jewish in some ways. And thank you, Kurgan. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate that. And you guys can join. You guys can join as well and become a friendly historian for only $4 a month. What is the ancient Rome? And you get early access to videos and other great things. If we get enough members, we're going to have private chats. Not private in that weird sense, but yeah. What is the with ancient Romans and not being into Christianity? The ancient Romans, the problem that they had with Christians was not that the Romans didn't care. The Romans really didn't care about Jesus of Nazareth. If he was a god, oh well, it's just one other god amongst many who happen to exist. The problem that they had was that, I mean, they were perfectly fine with Egyptian, Greek gods, gods from any other society. The problem was that the Christians were opposed to declaring Caesar as their god, and this led to huge problems. So that's kind of what happened, Colt. And Forsace, I hope you're still here. Kurgan, thank you again. I really appreciate you. What is with ancient Romans and not? Oh, I already answered that. It's a lot of speculation by other people's beliefs. We can all respect each other, right? Before what religion are you? Yes, exactly. People can respect one another's beliefs, but I'm not going to share what my personal beliefs are on the matter. People have asked me if I believe in God, and I've said repeatedly that I do, because there has to be some sort of, I feel that there has to be some sort of higher power. I sleep better knowing there's a higher power, but that makes me a basic theist. It doesn't make me a classical theist. It doesn't make me a deist. It doesn't make me a Christian. It doesn't make me a Jew. It doesn't make me a Hindu. It doesn't make me a Mohammedan. It doesn't make me any of these things. And I have spoken about the history of all of these religions, because you can't study history and culture without understanding basic religious principles. What do you think of the LDS movement and Joseph Smith? I think the LDS, I obviously respect Mormons. We have Mormons who subscribe to the channel. I made a video saying Joseph Smith was killed and not a martyr, and I got a lot of big flack for that. I think that it's total historical revisionism, the idea that that Hebrews came and lived here as Native Americans. I think that some of the earliest Native Americans were the Hebrew Nephites, and that Jesus visited them after he rose from the dead. That's historically ridiculous. There's no record of that whatsoever. I mean, I have perfect respect for anyone who wants to be a Mormon, who practices the Mormon faith, but you're going to have a heavy time arguing that history with me, because I certainly don't agree with that. But I will say there is history from silence. So, I mean, it's very hard to make any historical claim that people traveled across the sea and settled in this land. But, I mean, where history is silent, I'm going to be silent about it. And where history seems to indicate that something did or didn't happen, I'm going to say it probably did and probably didn't happen. So I can say Jesus died on the cross, but I'm not going to necessarily say, because I think it's an argument from silence, that historically at least, that Jesus rose from the dead. Romans' problem with Christianity is it didn't believe they were the state. Yes, the Christians didn't want to recognize Caesar as a deity, and because they didn't want to recognize Caesar as a deity and give him worship, some sort of worship, that made them the pariah of the Roman state. I'm open. I'm a practicing Christian, but half Jewish and half practicing Jewish family, and so see it more of a cultural eating thing, but I do go to church. Interesting. Fascinating. And you're surprisingly liberal. There are many Christians who are liberal, particularly in the Anglican Church. Do you think Stalin would personally beat Hitler himself if he captured him, or just treat him like any other prisoner of war? Maybe personally beat him, but Stalin was kind of a coward. As soon as the Nazis invaded, he ran away like tired and scared. And Lenin was a coward too. There was a funny thing where a British diplomat didn't like a Mormon American diplomat and said, "No wonder he's a Mormon. One woman couldn't handle him." Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to really slam polygamy and the Mormon belief in polygamy, because that has changed over time, just like Christians went from crusades to peace and love and all of that stuff. And yep, good quote, Kurgan. Very good quote. Thank you for your membership. I really appreciate you. And you are on the first tier of membership, so you get a nice little recognition of Nicholas I. Not the best Russian czar, but a czar nonetheless. Tell us something funny from this history. What kind of history? From any history? Okay, let's see. Ooh, that's a good one. Funny, I don't know if I can tell you something funny. I can tell you something interesting that might be a little humorous. There was a, oh geez. I always forget when I'm put on the spot, but then I remember later on. Sorry. Okay. Here we go. So there was so Rasputin was the advisor to the Russian Tsar and Tsarina, and who obviously supposedly had the ability to heal the heir to the Russian throne. He was eventually cornered by a bunch of Russian nobles who didn't like him. They poisoned his food. He ate it and was fine. Then they shot him several times. He was still alive. They beat him with a cudgel because he was still alive. And then they put his body on a raft and dumped it into the sea, into the river, and he was still alive. They found water in his lungs. So, yep. Take care, Kurgan. Thanks for joining. It's not funny, but it's just crazy that he managed to survive all of that. Then they dismembered him. They mutilated him. They cut off one of his organs. I'll let you figure out which one, and put it on display. The Bolsheviks eventually unearthed his body from its grave and burned the remains. Random, but are myths inherently religious? I've never come across a super secular myth. Not sure if that's the nature of myths themselves. Myths are close to what are called etiologies, and etiology is a story that tells you exactly why things are the way they are. Why does it rain? Why does water fall from the ground? Well, long ago, this man Noah built an ark, and he went and God punished the world for its wickedness, so don't be wicked. But that story is in Greek mythology. Gilgamesh builds a giant cube to do the same thing. The ancient Mesopotamians have that story. Zeus sees human beings sacrificing other humans and eating them, and he decides to destroy the world with a giant flood and save 2 human beings, Adam and Eve, anyone. These stories are all over the place. Mythologies are very common, even if they are different religions, polytheistic versus monotheistic. One thing that I find particularly fascinating is, despite the fact that the Christian, that Christian, Jewish, and Muslim stories are more monotheistic, when you look at the mythologies of the ancient Greeks and Romans, you're looking at, and the Egyptians too, you're looking at descriptions of characters who are imperfect and are more like superheroes than like actual deities who are perfect in monotheistic religions. If I became a member, will I get the green name of a blue wrench because I'm a mod? Maybe, I think so. What do you say to people who think dinosaurs are just a myth from the government? I say, how much does your tinfoil hat cost? And does it fit? Was me getting... I don't get why you made that option, but thanks in advance. I don't know about God's plan. I'm not sure. I'm going to be very skeptical about what... how am I supposed to divine, no pun intended, the will of a God? Yeah. Why did the American colonists dump tea in the harbor? Because proper revolutions require steep consequences. That's funny. I'm glad that Rando is okay too. I'm so sorry for your pain. Do you think a giant flood has happened in the past? On the scale, there's the Diluvian one with Noah. There's no evidence for it. The earliest writings of it are at the very least thousands of years after it happened. I do find it interesting that the only thing that makes me believe that there probably could have been one is that you see this myth in almost every single major society, meaning that there's something to it. Just like pyramids and ziggurats all over the world. Just like you have people building large temples with giant steps going all the way up to God in South America and in Egypt. I hope the Skibidi toilet holds no historical impact in 2 years instead of a couple hundred years. Okay, here's a question. According to history, which kind of religion is better for civilization? Believing in one God or believing in many gods? Oh, that's a tough one. The Romans and the Greeks made extremely powerful and advanced and interesting civilizations. The Hindu religion is centrifugal to India's existence, and India has become a very powerful society that has lasted through so many ups and downs that you can't even say that polytheism is discounted. The knee-jerk reaction for Westerners is to say that a monotheistic society is easier to handle, but that's discounting the incredible historical record of Rome, Greece, Egypt, and the Indians. Now, is it true that automatically, because of that, they are a superior society? No, not necessarily. I can't say one way or another. Harry, don't put images in my mind. China has territorial disputes with several countries, including India, Japan, Vietnam, the Philippines, Bhutan, and Brunei, and that doesn't surprise me at all. Justice? I don't know what you're talking about. Werner, I don't know what you're discussing. I think dwarves would be more likely to use long pole arms because they need to increase their range. That's true. Javelins might be their specialty. Crossbows make sense. I think the only believable religion is Buddhism or Wilsonism. Yes, probably. So, does anyone have a question about history, social studies, past, present, geopolitics, past and present, all of that good stuff that we talk about on the channel all the time? And if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. We've got about 20 more minutes on our 2-hour special where we are celebrating our amazing accomplishment of getting monetized on the second level. We will be back tomorrow for a live stream lecture, 4 p.m. Eastern. Stilts? Yeah, if they can master stilts. Why are we talking about dwarves? Even I'm getting sucked into the dwarf talk. So I don't want to talk about something other than dwarves. Let's see. Anyone have anything out there? No rush. Bueller. Any super chats? That'd be nice. How long do you think trends lasted back a few hundred years ago when communication was slow and nothing was as fast-paced as it is today? Trends could last a lot longer. The more digitized, the more information technology we depend on, the more we get people who are, the more we see, the quicker, the slower it is, the faster it is. We don't have as much interest in a news story. Things pass a lot quicker. Things do not last in our minds as well. And yeah, it'd be the same thing with trends. Trends lasted a lot longer. I mean, look at the powdered wigs, and that was basically the dominant feature in the 17th and 18th century. Stilts and long heels, okay. And Adam and Eve had relations to Steve. Probably not our Steve. Do you think Tralala Funk will be remembered by future historians? What the heck is that? It's not even remembered by this historian, and I'm a current historian. True or false? Only Presidents Adams were the only presidents without slaves before Lincoln. I'm trying to think. James Buchanan bought slaves so that he could free them. I think Franklin Pierce owned slaves. I'm just going back through it. Polk owned slaves. All of the founding presidents except the Adamses owned slaves. Andrew Jackson owned a lot of slaves. Van Buren? I think he owned slaves, but he was actually anti-slavery in many ways. Polk owned slaves. Tyler and Harrison owned slaves. I think Fillmore didn't own slaves. Yeah. My heaven has Chinese takeaway in it. I would love Chinese takeout right now. True or false? Donald Trump is orange. True. He is 50% Oompa Loompa. Confirmed. All right. Will Russian people get McDonald's back after the tariffs? Do they have McDonald's in Russia actively right now? I have no idea. I know they tried to bring them over in the 1990s after the fall of communism, but with current trends, it doesn't seem very popular. Columbus facts. Christopher Columbus? Okay, here's something controversial. So Columbus believed that he was going to India. He believed this till his death, even after Amerigo Vespucci, which the continents were named after, disproved him. Columbus never landed on the mainlands of either North or Central or South America. His first voyage brought him to Hispaniola. His second brought him to Cuba. He landed on the Virgin Islands. He went around the coast of what is Central America and the country that bears his name, Colombia, in South America. Lincoln's wife had slaves. He didn't have any slaves himself, and I don't believe they inherited slaves. Yep. True or false? Nero married a boy that looked like his wife. He murdered. Yes, I think so. He kicked his pregnant wife to death and then married a boy who looked like her. I don't know if they married, but they definitely had carnal relations. Do you think if Napoleon lived today, France would still succeed? I don't know what Napoleon would look like today. It would be very fascinating. I think Napoleon would be an extremely aggressive, militaristic fascist by our standards. Thanks, Frank. I really appreciate it. Day one of, would these two random dead people be friends? Gandhi and Columbus. Oh, wow, I like that. With these two random... That sounds like a good topic for a series. It's kind of weird but interesting at the same time. Gandhi and Columbus. No. No. Columbus was pro-colonization. Gandhi was against it. Although, on the one hand, they were both pretty racist. So there you got that. If I married a woman, would she be a good wife? Yes, every single woman throughout all of human history has always been a good wife, no matter what. You could marry Lizzie Borden, who was born on this day in 1860. I hear she's pretty good with families. Yes, keep this series going. I like it, Colt. I'll actually make videos on this now. Thank you, Colt, for this wonderful idea. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your participation your first time around. That's a fun topic, asking me if two random people in history could be friends. Or who would be, or romantic pairings or things like that. Can you freestyle rap? If I've got a good enough beat, then yeah. Why does British never stop the king's rule type of thing? The British are interesting in so many ways, and I love the Brits. We got two people here, two moderators who are Brits. But the reason I think there's a love of a ceremonial monarchy that has evolved from the constitutional monarchy of the 18th and 17th centuries, that evolved from the previous parliamentary monarchy, and then the absolutist monarchy of the High Middle Ages. The British and the English in particular have always found affinity for the monarchy, and even as it became more of a figurehead ceremonial status, rather than get rid of it, they saw it as a rallying point for their people. There were several times when the monarchy could have completely dissipated after the 1830s. In the 1830s, King William IV basically signed off all of his power, creating a ceremonial monarchy. His niece Victoria became the queen after he died in 1837, and when her husband Albert died in 1861, she went into such a deep depression that she wasn't seen from in public in years. This hurt the prestige of the monarchy, and the parliament even thought about getting rid of it. In 1936, Edward VIII, her great-grandson, abdicated the throne to marry an American divorcee. With the rise of the Nazis and so many other political and economic questions troubling England, a lot of people wondered if the monarchy was out of date. And then George VI came into power, held the line during the next World War, became close friends with Churchill, and Churchill helped the British monarchy stay in power, with both being an advisor to both George VI and his daughter Elizabeth. So the monarchy has ebbed and flowed in terms of its popularity, but it seems to be something that the British love as an institution to remind them of their history and their culture, and that's why those things matter so much. Modern TikTok slang. Oh boy, Winston Churchill had a lot of Riz, but not when it comes to those India boys. I don't know all the stuff. I know what Riz is, but I've got to get back. On summer break, I got to get back in the classroom to hear what the local jibber jabber is. True or false? Presidents never propose nor ratify any constitutional amendments. False. They can't do it, but they can definitely push it, like Lincoln did with the 13th Amendment. Use simple words, man. Everything is going above my head. Sorry, Super V Gaming. Let's hear the rap. Boom, chicka, boom, chicka. No, sorry, AC. I love your love for music, but I love music, but I'm not gonna rap. If you give me $5,000, I'll rap, but it's gonna sound terrible, and you'll instantly have buyer's remorse. Yeah, the way Winston Churchill treated the Indians was skippity. I don't know. I just don't know. Let me see here. Talking about that he is on TikTok. I am on TikTok now, so. What is your profession? I'm an educator, a teacher, but I'm, of course, also a historian. I have exactly 5,000. Darn it. But yeah. Okay, let's see here. Questions about history and social studies. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. So we've got 10 more minutes in our celebration of monetization. We have monetized on the second level. We'll be back tomorrow for our live stream lecture. We're going to be discussing, I don't know what we're going to be discussing, because you guys need to go vote on my YouTube post and figure out topics for tomorrow. And then we go live every Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern for Q&A. Although we might go earlier now that I know that if it's easier for Simon, because I love having Simon around. Make sure to show love, by the way, to my moderators, Harry and Simon. They've done such a great job. They've stayed with me almost the entire time today. I really appreciate both of them. Can you tell me where exactly you live and what time you are alone at home? Yes, I'll tell you. I'll write you a very secret message along with my mother's maiden name and my social security number. College, school, university, what kind of teacher? I'm not going to go into more than that. Yes, I am the worst rapper ever. No, that's not true. Eminem is the worst rapper ever. Yes, and your support does indeed mean the world. Let's see if we can get to 30 likes before we're done here. Yes, worst rap channel ever. Thank God it's the Friendly History channel, because it's the unfriendly rap channel. Maybe I should change my name to the Unfriendly Rap channel. That would be kind of funny. People would be expecting rap, and they would show up and learn all about Louis XVI. Isn't Eminem dead? No, he is not. And I'm just kidding. Eminem is a great rapper. Jake, peace to you. Salam. Prince Albert wrote his last thing on the royal memorandum to President Lincoln on the Trent affair. It is amazing what he wrote, especially in his last 3 days when he finished. He worked himself to death. He was an incredible individual. He was extremely galling. I really, really love him. Yeah. Teacher in history, what is the power that music have? I mean, music is a cultural binder, much like religion and art and other things, that basically gives an understanding of what the local people think is important to them. It expresses their feelings about one another, their feelings about their government, their feelings about their god or gods. Most music is actually religious if you actually look at it historically, and music is a way to chart course towards divinity, towards the divine. It has that power to liberate and to free, and every ancient civilization believed this and practiced this in some way, shape, or form. I don't know what happened to Lincoln's father-in-law slaves. I don't know if they were freed. I don't know if they were sold off to someone else. I'm not sure. Religious rapper? Oh my goodness. There are plenty of channels on YouTube who are like that, and I'm like the antithesis of either of those things in many ways. It was in history, what is the power that music holds? Kind of answered that. Day one, would these random dead people be friends? Lincoln and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Jinnah was his name. Yes, both supported liberty and freedom for their people. Lincoln would have obviously respected Jinnah's efforts to apply the Declaration of Independence to Pakistan. I wish there was a channel that explained history in a friendly way. Well, you're here. Hopefully I've explained it in a pretty friendly way. I can get contentious sometimes, but never because I started. Yes, it's a big milestone and well-deserved. Well, it's all because of you guys, because you guys subscribed, you followed the channel, you joined us here. And yes, Roxanne, great to see you. Hello. Thank you for joining us, Roxanne. Good to see you. I think, again, oops, I did not mean to delete that message. I'm sorry, Simon. I don't think I can. Sorry, I can't undelete it. But I think I did pin it. So if you'd like to support the channel, feel free to drop a super chat or become a channel member. It helps keep the content coming and conversation flowing. Absolutely what Simon the Bunny said times 1,000. Susan Anthony and Hugh Hefner. Absolutely not. Objectification of women was not on her plate whatsoever. But good one, Rodolfo. Have you watched Game of Thrones? And if you did, how is it similar to actual history? It's actually completely based on the War of the Roses. I don't know which family is supposed to be which, but the War of the Roses was the England has had like 4 different civil wars. I have an article in Substack about it, but people think there's only been one English civil war. There's been several. And if you want, you can call the American Revolution an English civil war. I'm sure that'll make Harry happy, but and no, Lee did not lose the war for the South. Lee was not the best sovereign general, but the fact that the South even had a chance of winning that war is because of Robert E. Lee completely, Steve. You're not going to change my mind about that. I know you're trying to fact check me on that and you're trying to ask leading questions, but that's not true. And I'm only saying that because you bring that up all the time. And Lee did make mistakes, as did every major general in all of human history. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at it, the only reason the South stayed in the war is because Lee completely outsmarted McClellan, completely outsmarted a bunch of different generals in a bunch of different circumstances and contexts. So, yeah, so the War of the Roses between the Yorkists and the Lancastrians, 2 different English families fighting in the 1450s to the 1480s, and George R.R. Martin took that inspiration of kind of a late medieval kingdoms fighting each other to create Game of Thrones, except, you got dragons and stuff. I would love to look it up and read it. Thank you so much, Harry. Maybe you can email it to me or put it on my Substack. Who would win a boxing match, George Washington or Napoleon? Washington. He's taller. Napoleon would be that scrappy little fighting guy who would bite people if he had to, but I think George Washington's got him. He's just too big. What was with Shakespeare? What's with Shakespeare in general? Shakespeare created a bunch of words that he didn't know, that people did not know. I mean, no one has influenced the English language more than the writers of the King James Bible than Shakespeare. Yeah. Interesting, AC. I'm not going to wrap that. Full description explaining what the goals are. Fair enough. I should probably do that. Earth does have great storytelling. When you say history, do you also read the mythological history? Yes, I cover all types of history, and mythology is a huge part of history. You can't have a development of the Greek and Roman civilizations without their mythologies. Super, go watch my video yesterday about the Roman kingdom, and I talk a lot about the rise of the triads, the Archaic Triad and the Capitoline Triad, and how that impacted the Roman kingdoms, and how a lot of people think it's the basis for the Christian Trinity. Yep, our 2 hour special is almost up. We're going to wrap it up soon. We technically were supposed to start at 2 Central, and so it's just after 4 Central, but we did start a little late. How old were some of the young queens? Some of them could be like 10 or 11. Were the Trojans tripping on God? I don't know. Probably not. Wrap it up. Yes, wrap it up with an R. The history that's in mythology. Yes, I talk about mythological events and occurrences in mythology. Yeah, wrap it up. Yeah, you can go and remix that or do the Lamar Jackson edit if people are still doing that, because that's the most recent TikTok thing I heard about. That's funny. So, anyways, we're going to wrap it up in case anyone has anything else they would like to discuss. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. Maybe I want to be. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Simon has like level 10 Stockholm syndrome. He doesn't want to be freed. He enjoys being in the cave. Did the Greeks believe in atoms? Not in the same way we do. I don't know more than that about that, Steve, but not in the same way either. Don't cover your camera for Lamar Jackson edit. I'm sorry, AC. I'm not rapping to get a subscription from you. I'm defiant. And I love all of you too, because being a friend means being loving, I guess. Whatever. I don't know. Being a neighbor. Maybe I should start all my live streams by putting on my smoking jacket, singing the Mr. Rogers theme song, walking into the studio and singing the Mr. Rogers name, because I mean it's a beautiful day in the history neighborhood. So I don't have a photographic memory, but I might have like a tier or two below. I can't remember every single thing that's ever happened, and I forget things all the time. Like I lose stuff and stuff like that. So, thank you, Harry. I would love to read that memorandum. Pimp be seen, Egyptian queens, I'm a dean, live streams be clean. Pimp be seen, Egyptian queens, I'm a dean, live streams be clean. There you go. That's my best attempt right now. Other than that, I'm bored. Keep seeing Napoleon edits. There's nothing I can do. Oh my goodness. I love Napoleon edits. I have subscribed. Is this a cult? Pun intended. Yes, you have subscribed, and now we will take all of your money. Yes, I did it. It wasn't that good, but I did it, so you're welcome. Thank you, AC. I appreciate you. Okay, Frank. I'm yes. Yes, we all agree with you. I think. Okay, anything about history, social studies. But yes, maybe I'll put that on a poll. Do you want me to start all of my live streams with me walking out, doing the Mr. Rogers thing while I put on my smoking jacket, while singing Would You Be My Neighbor? $100 a month for a one-on-one live. Interesting. So, oh geez, you just want me to rap with jazz hands. I'll put on, but instead of putting on a sweater, I'm putting on my smoking jacket. Maybe I can have a shirt and tie underneath. I have worn a shirt and tie when doing live streams. I have put on formal wear before. I realize that no one watches my videos when I'm wearing just a plain white t-shirt, which is what I love to wear. So I dress up a little bit. Yeah, maybe I should try that. We'll see. I'd have to have somebody filming me from across the room or have a camera far away when I walk in. There is a door at the other end of my studio where I could walk in. But yeah, I wouldn't know how to like start it, but yeah. Cloud formation from exactly 282,000 years ago. That, the Abraham Lincoln fit. Oh, that'd be funny. Are you a blood or a crip? I'm wearing blue right now, so there you go. I want 1920s. That'd be interesting. I'm a big Blacklist fan, so I could dress like Reddington, and that's like 1920s, so I give off gangster vibes, yes. Yes, I am the white gangster. When you, just can't with you guys. When you read history, don't you get bored when you suggest other people to read history? They are not getting bored? People get bored with history because they're not taught it in a compelling manner. Over academic textbooks, teachers not being passionate about it give history this reputation of being boring. But when you actually start to see the connections and actually start to explain the human condition within history and the fact that it's all about human ideas being perpetuated in different ways, shapes, and forms, you realize that it's actually quite fascinating in its own right and in its own way. No heels. I'm not doing the heels thing. As much as Frank wants me to, I'm not doing the heels. Yeah, it's very Crips, so there you go. Have you ever historically robbed a Dollar General store? Not historically. More like criminally. A teacher who is impassioned is committing crime. Absolutely. And that's what I'm going to pin as the very last message for the day. Simon, can you put the social medias in the chat one more time so everyone who's still here can see it and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, Patreon, and Substack, and now TikTok. And I will put the TikTok here so you guys can see it. I've got even more content exclusive to this channel on my TikTok. So yes, please join us there as I look through all of my backgrounds that I use on all of my videos. TikTok I find is better for making videos and content, and then transcribing it over here. You know, it's easier and not it's better with than the green screen model. But I still, of course, make videos on YouTube and for YouTube all the time. Usually I use CapCut for that. Let me see, where is it? I'm going to show you guys my TikTok handle. Okay, there it is. So yeah, Friendly History, at Friendly History. I don't know if you guys can do the thing, but yeah, that is my TikTok. So please follow us on there. Yeah, make a Discord server. I do have a Discord. I just don't have a computer for actually streaming, but I will eventually do that. A Discord server would be fun. I want to do streaming. I want to play video games while I stream and just talk about random history of you guys, because I think that would be so awesome. All right. I don't think anyone's better than Simon at being a mod. No offense to Harry, Hars, and all the wonderful other mods that I have on this channel. Yeah, Harry does a great job. Harry always shares interesting facts and information that people don't know, and that helps the channel grow. So, yep. It's okay, Harry. Maybe we can talk about it some other time. I really want to read that memorandum because it sounds amazing. Harry's fantastic, and so is Rodolfo, and so is Simon, and so is Hars, and Freshly, and all the other great mods and subscribers that we have here. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to sign off. We just went over 2 hours. Really appreciate everyone staying and talking and asking stuff. Had a small crowd, but a fun crowd. Really, really enjoy it. Make sure to take care. We'll see you tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern for the live stream. Follow us on all those social media platforms, as well as here on TikTok, where you can get extra content. You can become a member here or on Patreon for bonus content, early releases, and all of that great stuff. Yeah, take care. Love history, and bye-bye.